And joining us now, Jason Eck, the head coach at New Mexico. All right, where are you now? Are you in your office? What's going on?
In my office here, John. We got a little walk in here today, and then we got practice this afternoon.
All right, what time? Or give me this idea. We always hear about these coaches who sleep in their office. What time you guys get in? When does the day start?
We kind of have a little extra time because we're coming off of a bye week. Really this morning I got in about 8 a.m. So I'm not one of those guys who's getting up at 3 a.m. to work. We're ahead of schedule coming off of a bye, and we're ready to go. I'll probably stay tonight and after practice and make sure I get all the film watched and done that. I'm a little bit more of a later night guy than an early morning guy.
Yeah, look, and your kids and your family probably got to get to know you again on a bye week. And correct me if I'm wrong. Do you have five, four, five?
I have 5 kids.
Kids.
The great thing is the 2 oldest go to New Mexico. My oldest son is a student equipment manager for us, so I see him every day. And then my second son is our starting Mike linebacker, so we get to see those guys every day. But you kind of live in coaching, for the times you do get off. And Thursday night usually is our night when we have all the work done. So we'll have a little family dinner this Thursday night.
Give us an idea, because you've done this successfully. You're doing a great job there. You're winning. The fan base is excited. The transition from going from, an FCS school at Idaho into the Mountain West. How did you effectively navigate that? Because I think a lot of schools are looking at that going, okay, if we hire a guy from the FCS division, do they bring players with them? How does that work in your world, or how did that go down?
Yeah, I think it did help. We brought 7 players with us from Idaho, and they're all playing a key role. I think probably 5 of them are starting, and then 2 of them are key reserves. One of them key special teams player. Also was able to get some guys from our conference. Damon Bankston's having a tremendous year for us. I think he's like 4th in the country in all-purpose yards. He's one of the only guys, I think, in the country who's had a 100-yard rushing game, a 100-yard receiving game, and a 100-yard kickoff return in the same year. Scott Trey Humphrey came from Montana State, who's a Seattle kid and doing a good job. We actually have our center, right guard, and right tackle on offense are all Pacific Northwest guys, all from the state of Seattle-Tacoma area. So definitely had some guys that we knew about on our radar from up there, and really it's just been a blessing. We got more resources here. We can give our players more food. We're feeding them really 3 meals a day when we're in season. We have more NIL dollars at our disposal than we had. So, I do think, my time at FCS, taught me how to do more, with less, but now, we have more here. So I don't think it's been a very hard transition. I do think the best teams in the Big Sky are usually pretty competitive, with teams, especially the middle to bottom part of our league. When I was at Idaho, we were 2-0 against, Mountain West teams. So, I didn't feel like it was a huge jump or a huge change.
Yeah, look, and you've had success there. There's a lot of enthusiasm, as I mentioned, but what's it like to see your name come up in, these are the top candidates that are out there and available. And how do you manage that with your roster? Do you address it in the locker room? Do you not address it? What's the protocol there?
Well, I addressed it with our team, and, really in a positive area, because it's, to me, it's a good thing when you're winning. People recognize that, and people are talking about your coach. People are talking about your players. When the first year I got to Idaho, they were coming off of a 4-win season, and they still had a few guys transfer, but they had maybe three or four players transfer. Well, fast forward to the year we won 10 games, I think there were 17 of those players who transferred up to FBS from the FCS level. So I do think it's a reflection of how we're doing, and that we're doing well, and that we're exceeding expectations. So I think it's a positive. And what I reminded our players is it really is exactly the same for players and coaches right now, because the players have agents reaching out to them and through social media and things, and you have to stay focused on the job at hand. And then, in FBS football, where you have that little break in December before the bowl games, we'll have a time to take a breath. The transfer portal doesn't open until January. So there'll be time to focus on that and to think, hey, what is the best move for our players? Is it to stay? Is it to look at the transfer portal? It's a good time for our assistant coaches. Hey, do I want to stay here? Should I look at other opportunities? And for myself to do that. But I think you can get ahead of yourself if you start worrying about that stuff in October and November. you're doing yourself a disservice. We want to try to play as well as we can. And, really for players and coaches, the better you play, the more value you're creating for yourself.
Yeah, it's a good point about that change and that difference. I mean, you were at Wisconsin, played till 98. You were a GA in 99, Ron Dane eras. By the way, what was it like to block for the Great Dane?
It was awesome. Now, most of my blocks I had for Ron were in practice because, I was a backup. So he was usually, I would block for him in practice, but in the game, I was usually blocking for his backups by the time I got in. But he was a great player, an amazing talent. We were teammates for 3 years, and then my first year as a graduate assistant, he won the Heisman Trophy, and I kind of got hooked on coaching right away. My first year coaching, we won the Rose Bowl, and our star player won the Heisman Trophy. So I thought, hey, this coaching stuff's pretty easy. It wasn't always that easy, but I'm glad I've stuck with it through all those years. And great memories of Madison. I learned a lot from Coach Alvarez. I think he's probably one of the two most influential head coaches I worked for in my career.
The success you had almost immediately at Idaho and the growth you had, and, you go from like 7 wins to 9 wins, to deep in the playoffs, and now success at New Mexico. You've done this at a time when there's been tremendous transition in the sport itself. How have you been able to sort of navigate that?
Well, I think a couple ways. I think it was not always fun to go through when I was an assistant coach, but my 23 years I was an assistant coach. I worked for 11 or 12 head coaches. I forget exactly which one it was, but I saw a lot of different ways of doing things. And some of those were crazy circumstances that led to that. But, I saw a lot of different ways. And I think I took something from every one of those coaches, even if it was just, hey, this is not a great way to do it. And I think it's led me, to really believe that you have to be very flexible in what you do and you have to be able to evolve. And, there's been a lot of change in the last 5 years in college football with NIL and the transfer portal taking off. And you can't wish for the way things used to be. You can't, and certainly, some people will tell you this stuff's ruining college football. It's not at all. I don't think college football has ever been more popular than it is now. It's just different. And a lot of industries have evolved. My grandfather used to work for Wisconsin Bell, the telephone company. Obviously, telephones have evolved a lot over the past 50 years. So I think we just try to stay ahead of it. I think one thing that we've really focused on in this era where you have so many new players, we have 75 new players who were on the team last year out of 100 or 109 on the roster. You really have to speed up and work on team building. It's not the old days where you have 25 new players and 75 or 80 returners. You got to work every year on building that team and working those relationships. And I think that's been something that's helped our transitions go quickly, both at New Mexico and at Idaho.
I noticed, after a big win, UCLA win, you guys have a great win there. There's a video of you on the plane, and you're rallying the fan base to show up this week against Colorado State, and you're doing more of that. Is that outside your comfort zone, or is that just a reality that you've got to do some of that stuff?
No, I think that's part of it. I do think taking over programs that have not had historic success or recent success. You got to win back the fans. They're not used to going there, and largely they're not used to going it because it's not a very good experience. No one wants to buy season tickets and see the team go 1-5 at home or anything. So I do think I found a pretty good recipe of you got to win, but I think you also got to connect with your fan base because you got to change behavior. Just like we're trying to change behavior of our players when you're trying to turn around a program, you got to change behavior of your fan base. And I haven't turned down, I don't think any speaking engagements or anything I could show up to for my first off season I was here, just because I knew we had to connect with this community, make sure that they knew we were a part of the community and that they can make a difference. And we've already seen that. We sold out our New Mexico State game. That was the first sellout we'd had in University Stadium since 2007. So we've been able to do some things that hadn't been done here in a long time. And it was the same thing at Idaho. At Idaho, we sold out 2 games in 2013, and they hadn't had sellouts since Boise State came up in like 2010. So I think connecting with the community, getting the fan base engaged and excited again about Lobo football has been as important as winning the games on the field. But obviously, winning games on the field is a big part of it too. Yeah,
Mountain West Conference is going to endure some change here. How do you think it impacts you guys? Because I sort of see you guys at the top of that conference now. And I think, you're going to have an opportunity to be a G5 champion if you guys are there as a staff.
Yeah, John, that was what really made this part of what made this job intriguing to me, and I felt comfortable that we were going to continue to win at Idaho. Obviously, at the FCS level, the top of FCS, you have that tough period right when your season's over and your roster is getting poached and things. But, I thought we were going to be able to withstand that and continue to win there. So it was going to take something a really good opportunity to, to move away from that. And there was three things that I thought were really special about this place. One, I think we have great leadership. We have a new athletic director, Fernando Lobo, who's a football guy. People had, talked to me about New Mexico has been more of a historic basketball school. But I know you can be good at both. A lot of programs are. And, Fernando had been at football schools. He had been at Florida and Ohio State, and Texas, and Houston. So he really impressed me. I like being at a state in the group of five where you don't have a Power Four school or NFL teams in your state. I think that kind of differentiates ourselves. And I think Boise is an example of that, in the West that kind of has, the state's eyeballs. And then the third thing was, you look back the last 40, 50 years for New Mexico, and they've been in the conference, not just with the teams who are leaving this year, Boise State and Colorado State and San Diego State, Fresno, Utah State, but there was a lot of years where they were in conferences with Arizona and Arizona State back in the WAC, and they were in those leagues with TCU and Utah and BYU. And, really, if you looked at it for 50 years, New Mexico has been at the bottom half of their conference resource-wise. I think starting next year, that's no longer the case. We're going to be clearly in the top half and, probably maybe more like top third or top quarter of the conference resource-wise, which I thought gave us a great opportunity to do better than we had in the past. And I knew, we couldn't wish away this first year before. I said, hey, we got to get to a bowl game this first year to build that momentum. But, I see us, starting in 26 going forward, that we're going to be a team expected and competing for the championship every year.
There's some bad feelings with some of the schools that watching, those schools leave, but you've only been there a season. Does it mean something extra to beat those teams on their way out, or is that, there's too much else going on?
I think it does. I get along with a lot of people. There's not, many people who aren't my cup of tea. I'm kind of a people person, but, I think I've always had a little bit of, it irks me when people think they're better than you or try to big time you. And I've conveyed that to our team. I think obviously these schools thought that, for whatever reasons, these teams they left behind didn't create enough value or weren't good enough to be competitors of them. And, I think that's, motivational. I think that, obviously we played two of those teams so far. We still have two coming up. We've split with Utah State. We've split with, we beat Utah State. We lost to Boise. Now we have Colorado State this week, and San Diego State's our last regular season game. I think that definitely adds to, a little bit more to that game, playing a team who's leaving, even though I'm new and so many of our players are new.
I'm not, I don't want to sound like your agent here, but I think, if you leave New Mexico, you leave for a no-brainer job. Like, it's just, and I think that community, that fan base would understand it, but one season feels too soon. What do you say to people who go, Jason, are you sticking around? I'm sure you're getting that in the grocery store or the gym or wherever you are in the community.
Yeah. People ask me that a lot. And I think, this, especially this fan base, is definitely, scarred because the last coach left after 1 year and, left to a team that's going to the Pac-12. So I get the concern. And again, my answer, we love it here. My family loves it here. We've been very, engaged in this community. My kids are in public schools or are loving the schools. I have a son who's a freshman in high school. So we are certainly not, looking to leave. But I'm cautious to ever say something that I can't promise. I do like, buying those Mega Millions and Powerball tickets. And, if I win $150 million, maybe I would coach my 10-year-old son's team next year or something and do that. So I'm cautious to ever say words that would out of my mouth, but it's going to take something very, very special to leave here. And again, we are not looking, and I think we can build something special here. I think sometimes coaches feel like they have a window of opportunity where I got to win and get out. I do not feel that way. I think we can be consistently good here at New Mexico, even though history hasn't shown them do that. But I believe we can do that here.
I want you to look back a little bit at the Big Sky because you were there, and I think you can talk about it with clarity. Where does the Big Sky fit in college football?
I think the Big Sky still has a niche. It's tricky because I think you're going to have to love the names on the front of the jersey because I think it's going to be tricky every year to keep the your best players in that conference to stay with you. I do credit the fan bases at Montana and Montana State who really. You look at kind of how the level of play, the two Dakota schools and the two Montana schools, North Dakota State, South Dakota State, Montana State, they play at such a high level, and they've just those four teams have been in the championship game so much lately in FCS football. They have great fan bases. Their attendance is would fit right in with a group of five. Those are unique places, and I know Montana. They probably have better NIL opportunities than some of the other teams at their level. But, I still think it has a place. There's just not a lot of schools out west compared to other parts of the country. So I still think it has a place. I don't think there's a huge discrepancy in level of play. I think probably the top few teams in the Mountain West, I think are better than, anybody in the Big Sky. But the best Big Sky team certainly can beat middle of the pack Mountain West teams every year. And, even in our first year this year, we had a very competitive game. We ended up winning by 10 against Idaho State. They're doing a nice job, Coach Hawkins, and that's one of the tougher places in that conference. So, I root for the Big Sky. I think it's a great football conference. I think the commissioner, Wistersill, has really done a good job there, getting exposure for that conference, getting those Big Sky games on ESPN. I think they increased the number. It was usually 2 games when I was in the league. Now I think they've got that game up to 4. So I root for the Big Sky. It's good football. It's you can't fall in love with the names in the back of the jersey because it's tough to retain those guys in the current climate.
Yeah, I think 2 years ago you gave Oregon a real scare when you were at Idaho in that early game, and people looked back and said, "What's wrong with Oregon?" And well, it turned out Idaho was pretty good, and so was Boise State, who ended up being a playoff team. But I know you left there. You don't take a moral victory, but did you leave there feeling like there was a sense of accomplishment and going toe to toe with the Ducks?
Yeah, you know what? It was mixed feelings. Again, I do think when you're building a program, especially you're playing a team, I think they were, if not ranked number 1, they were in the top 5 at that time. I think that helped us build confidence. But, again, we did really accomplish nothing that helped us go towards our goals. And, that was the point I made to the team right after that game is they don't give out championship rings for playing a team like Oregon tough. We got to go earn it in the Big Sky. And I was proud of that year. We won 10 games at Idaho that year. That was the first time since 1993 that they had won 10 games, but we weren't good enough to get a conference championship that year. I think we tied for second, and then we ended up getting to the quarterfinals that year in the playoffs. Couldn't get farther than that. But I do think even this year, like us going to Michigan this year. No moral victories, but I think it did build some confidence that we could compete and hang in there with them. That has helped us, later in the year. And I think as you build a program more and more, the value of that goes down. Now it's, after we beat UCLA this year and played Michigan tough, I think going forward in those games, there's not going to be any solace of playing somebody tough because we know that, we aren't good enough to beat those teams on the road.
All right. Finally, you've got kids. We talked about the 5 kids, including the one you have on the team and working as a support staffer there. Does that help you because you understand kids of that age and kind of where they're at and what's important to them? I mean, is it, because I'm looking at a lot of coaches in a lot of programs and I go, gosh, kids are changing. And I've got 3 daughters and I'm kind of watching them going, wow, the world's a little complicated for these young people.
Well, I have an amazing wife. And she's, we kind of joke, and it's true. It's not even a joke. She's really the head coach at home. I'm the head coach at work. And I think she talks about a lot. You're kind of living in chaos with 5 kids. When you have 2 kids, you can play kind of man to man. You can each take care of one of them, and you're good. When you're playing with 5, it can be a little chaotic sometimes, but we love it. I do think. I think preparing me for a head coach, I think having a big family has helped. I think coaching the offensive line where we had always one of the bigger position groups, usually I had, around 20, offensive linemen that were in my position group, and it was the largest one in the team. So it just kind of helped me deal with people. And then I think that helped me when I became a coordinator and you're dealing with half the team. And now as a head coach and you're dealing with the whole team. But I definitely think it's, you can't say, kids are changing or kids are different. I mean, I think you got to evolve as a coach and you got to help build the behaviors you want out of those kids. I mean, that's what's coaching, having influence and showing leadership to help influence their behavior. But definitely, I think my family has been an asset. My wife has been a great partner to me. And I even said at my press conference, and we had a lot of days where, we had, 3 or 4 kids and we were making $50,000 and we're trying to make it work. And, she was asking whether we should, she could write a check for groceries or put it on the credit card. And you better put it on the credit card. I don't know if that check's going to be good. So I appreciate her sticking with me and helping me all those years to get where we are today.
All right. Rapid fire now. I'm just going to pepper you here. You're in a 2-minute drill, so to speak, but you go on a vacation, you go to the beach or the mountains?
Beach. Love the beach. We went to, but both times I've gotten the new job, I've taken my wife to Hawaii. So our first summer after we got the job at Idaho, we went to the Big Island, and then last summer we went to Maui.
You go in, you're at the grocery store and you got an option, paper or plastic. What are you doing?
I'm more plastic, and it's kind of practical. My wife and I, we have a cat. That's our pet. She wants to get a dog.
Okay.
I think we might get a bulldog this off season. We've never had a dog, but those plastic bags are really good for the litter box.
Butter or no butter on your movie theater popcorn?
Got to go butter.
And we're watching a movie. Are we watching a comedy, a drama, action movie? What are we doing?
Probably comedy and drama are my 2 favorite.
Okay. Favorite movie of all time?
I really like The Departed.
Oh,
great movie about the Irish mob in Boston.
Yeah. You and Dan Lanning both, man. That's interesting. All right, you got a book on your nightstand, or no time for a book during the season?
I think I have a book on my nightstand right now, but I have not made a lot of progress on it during the season. I usually get maybe more reading on the beach in Hawaii on that vacation.
Okay. I'm gonna guess you're an aisle, not a window guy on an airplane.
Definitely aisle.
Yeah.
Definitely my aisle, and my wife laughs. Like she'd prefer the aisle, and have my daughter. I have a 5-year-old daughter, and she demands that she wants the aisle. So puts my wife, or she wants the window, and puts my wife in the middle.
I love it. All right, Jason Eck, thank you, man. Appreciate you doing this.
Hey, thanks so much, John. Appreciate it. Bows up.